Hello, my friends and fellow VEDSies. Just finishing off a root beer float. So, I wasn't sure what I was going to post today, but then Caleb made a video inspired by a video Alicia made, and so I'm making a video inspired by that. This is just going to be a list of characters that I've related to over the years. Some of them I think are pretty obvious, some of them not as much. Alright, so first off, the earliest character I can remember relating to, Belle from Beauty and the Beast. Yeah, I think everybody who knows me knows that Beauty and the Beast is kind of a big thing for me, and that I have a connection to Belle. We've all seen my pin collection at this point. We know. And it's always been there, as long as I can remember, because Belle's the best. I mean, she's smart, she loves to read, she's kind, she's forgiving, but she won't take your bullshit. She's the best. Another bookish character, Jack from the Magic Treehouse series. Who read the Magic Treehouse series here? It was a very big thing when I was early elementary school. So much so that when I was 6 or 7, I believe, I went to a book signing. It was great. I still have it at home, packed away. But I always loved Jack. He was just an anxious boy. Just wanted to always know what was going on and keep his little sister out of trouble. And that relationship of being the sibling that had to make sure that the other sibling was okay was very much part of my dynamic with my little brother. Next, just like Alicia, I related to Hermione. I think at this point, it's very obvious that I related to a lot of characters who were smart and who liked books, because I was the kid who the teachers had to convince my parents that I already knew how to read. So I was very good at reading and understanding, and I was like a smart, gifted kid. But people were harder than books. And you know, that lasted me for a bit, and then we hit late elementary school, early middle school, when everything fucking sucks. I joke, but it was genuinely awful being in 5th grade, and what was a very just rough time, because that was a shit ton of bullying and a school transition and all of the things that are associated with switching schools and switching parishes and having to figure out all of that stuff on top of the normal middle school weird girl stuff. And so a character that I really loved and related to was Jessica Ruiz from the Electric Company. All of the main characters were just genuinely like nice, cool kids who, you know, people liked. I think what I loved about Jessica particularly was that she just got fed up sometimes, and she just freaked the fuck out sometimes. Like, Lisa would get sad if people, you know, like if something was going wrong, Lisa would get sad. Keith would be disappointed. Hector would be just puzzled. Jessica would freak out. Jessica was the one who was most likely to just like start screaming in somebody's face. She definitely had a breaking point, and as a kid who was just desperately trying to keep it together all the time, a character who was good and kind and smart and accomplished and was allowed to just lose it sometimes and no one thought less of her, was really cool. Middle school transitions are weird because the next character is Tim McGee from NCIS. Yeah, I had an NCIS phase, but I really loved McGee. He was a nerd, and while I was never a computer and math nerd, fantasy and adventure and mystery. Those were all things that I already loved at that point. At that age, I was already invested in all of those things. And he was also invested in all of those things. And McGee was always sort of treated as part of the group, but not really. And middle school Tessa definitely related to that sort of feeling of you're here, but for some reason you'll never quite be as essential to the group as everyone else. Yeah, we're in the middle of some teenage bullshit. The next two characters are a set because every time I say I relate to one, I have to also mention that I feel like it's a mix of them with the other. Allison and Brian from The Breakfast Club. And here's some teenage angst stuff. All of them, my parents don't understand me. There's so much pressure in my life. I hate myself. Everyone wants something from me, but nobody wants to know who I really am. It was peak early high school angst. Just aggressively angsty. But, I mean, if you blended those two characters together, if you did 50-50, you probably would end up pretty close. Continuing on the teenage angsty bullshit train, Natalie Goodman from Next to Normal. For context, Next to Normal is about the Goodman family, a family where the mother, Diana, has very extreme mental health issues, and it has consequences on the rest of the family and how they behave. So yeah, I found Next to Normal at the tail end of my freshman year of high school, and that was when my mental health was probably the worst it's ever been. And so a teenage character who just had these issues and again got angry, and that was a justified thing in the narrative, was really special. And also the idea that, you know, even when things got shitty, nothing could fix everything, but things could get better. And that was a really big deal to me. Next is the most aspirational character on the list, because Peggy Carter. Peggy was just, you know, so firm in her own understanding of her value, but still kind and clever and classy. It was never about putting other people down. It was about building herself up. And yeah, I fucking loved the Agent Carter show. Everything, the fashion, the fighting. Peggy, icon. I wanted to be Peggy, but I was a lot more like the narrator of Rebecca. For clarity's sake, Rebecca is a novel by Daphne du Maurier, and the main character is never given a name, so you do have to refer to her as the main character, the narrator, the second Mrs. De Winter. The entire plot of the novel focuses on this woman who is the second wife of this man whose wife died in this mysterious boating accident, and they loved each other so much, and she feels like she cannot compete with the memory of the first wife, Rebecca. And the anxiety of feeling like she has to compete with this memory, this ghost, haunts her and like nearly destroys her. And it's my favorite novel, and a lot of that is because the main character is just so anxiety ridden about everything for like the entire novel, but also just has this very soft, gentle, comforting way of thinking about things that are not her anxiety. It's an incredible book. I cannot recommend it strongly enough. It is my favorite book. And so naturally its main character has been somebody I relate to. Again, we're just swinging wildly into a different territory. Tony Stark, specifically MCU Tony Stark. I was a huge Cap stan for a long time. Like, Steve Rogers was my number one. But things got weird, things got iffy. You've seen the MCU. Steve was becoming less and less the Steve that I loved. And then in searching around the MCU, I remembered how much I loved Tony, who's just, when we think of Tony, the asshole, genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist, Tony, especially in his own films, is just so sad and so trauma-ridden and constantly trying to fix all of the mistakes he's made. He feels so weighed down by his own sins and is just trying to make amends. And also PTSD and panic attacks. Iron Man 3 was the first time I ever saw anything like that. And going back, understanding more about myself. Also, this was when I was super into the Iron Dad dynamic, the Tony Stark, Peter Parker MCU dynamic. And so that was a big thing for me. And of course I related to Peter, but Tony and his particular brain mechanics was something I related to. Robert Downey Jr., man. And then we really can't be surprised about the last two. Caleb and Jester from the Critical Role. So the thing about when I tell people that these are the two characters that I relate to most is that they always think that that's somehow incorrect, but these are the ones I relate to the most. Caleb is this character who so much has happened to him, and he kind of understands that it's not his fault. He can extend that empathy to other people, but not to himself. He is constantly living in his trauma. Liam O'Brien is extremely talented because he created a character with so many nuanced issues and quirks, so that he ended up with this character who is relatable on so many levels. Caleb's very reminiscent of PTSD, autism, just anxiety, depression, shit tons of trauma. He has so many of these things that we don't see in media or we don't see well, and it's really special to see them done so delicately and with so much kindness and warmth and hope and love for those around him, even if he believes himself to be irredeemable. Also, Caleb loves cats, and that's a mood. And Jester, people think of Jester and they think of sweet, kind, funny, dirty jokes. But there's also this profound loneliness in her. She has this trouble connecting, and there's just this sadness under this exterior of happiness, and it's really wonderful watching her slowly get to a point where she feels comfortable being something other than the happy Jester. Whew. This is getting sad. This is getting sad. I filmed like 30 minutes of footage and this is getting sad. But yeah, those are some of the characters that I've related to over the years. There's definitely some trends, definitely some angst, and I'm excited to hear what you guys think. And honestly, I think it'd be really fun if we kept this going. I want to know what everybody relates to. I think this is very fun. All right, my friends from VEDS, I will see you tomorrow.